Hello, everybody. Today we are talking about creating art with arthritis. Welcome to Art Prof. We are a global art party. Well, Lauryn, let's get you going because this is something that you've been dealing with for many years now.
Yes. So I should preface by saying that this is my experience, only my experience. What I say tonight might not be everybody's experience or for everyone.
We're not doctors.
Not doctors, just a patient, not even a very good patient. And also I should say that this is like one thing I've got going on, but I've got like several conditions like in my hands specifically that sort of like come together in this mess. So there are a few things going on. I'll go through each of them, but arthritis is one of them. I have been dealing with it, I guess, since I was like 18. I remember texting you, I think, even like asking for advice when I was taking a summer off of RISD about what to do for hand pain. And you said to get these shots. And at that point, I just thought was overuse. And I've always been told, oh, it's like inflammation and like your tendon sheath, all that. And I knew it wasn't that. Because that's a different type of pain, what's it?
Right.
Yeah, but I finally went to a rheumatologist that did a bunch of tests, and she's like, yeah, it's like inflammatory, non-rheumatoid arthritis. Here are your things. It's autoimmune, comes in flares. Right now I'm actually doing pretty good. I've got everything's working okay, but so that's going on. And then some things that sort of aggravate these things. I've got Raynaud's, which is like when your hands get really cold or when your circulation gets cut off. And then you just have like hand pain in that way because your circulation is like, you've got like white fingers. And then I had, a bone tumor, benign, that I've had for a while that was causing pain. And I got that removed and that has cleared some things up. So it's a little bit easier to manage all the different hand pains. But that means that it is interesting, I guess, making artwork. And I've had to adjust in a lot of ways because I'm using my hands all the time. I mean, everybody uses their hands. I'm not special, but it is like a point of pressure for artists in particular, I think.
Tell us in the comments, how many of you struggle with staying healthy in terms of making your art? I mean, it could be for anything, but I think most people, we have something that we're dealing with. For example, I was doing dry point, which is an intaglio printmaking technique. And the thing about dry point is you're drawing into a copper plate. But the problem is the way to get dark tones is you have to go right into that copper. You got to press hard. It's my favorite intaglio technique, but I would just die if I did it all the time. And so I found after a while, I was like, I can't work in this material on a long-term basis because I really wanted to, but I was like, I'm going to destroy my hands if I end up doing something like that. So tell us in the comments, do you have something in your life that is challenging in that way? Or maybe there's certain materials or media you just can't do anymore. Now, for you, Lauryn, a lot of it has been about pacing yourself and setting up realistic expectations, reasonable ones.
Yeah, that was something that I was really terrible at when I was in undergrad. But there's always this sense when you're young. When I was young, it's really true. You never think things are going to come up and bite you in the butt later. It's just like
They do.
They do. I felt like I was invincible when it crashed. It was, I don't know, very romantic or something. I don't know. I feel silly looking back at it now, but yeah. I have found over the years that the best way to keep things from really getting to a point where it's hard to undo stuff and crash and take a lot of time off is to stop while I'm ahead. And that can be anything from limiting the number of hours that I am doing in studio on a particular project to setting up buffers in shows or promises to people and getting work in on time, and also making sure that I am taking reasonable breaks. That one's still really hard for me, is getting in the right sized break, but those have been the things. I think definitely the buffers, creating the buffers for myself has been especially helpful, because then I can account for, say, I'm not feeling good or have some sort of flare or just something goes wrong, right? It doesn't need to be a body thing. It can be something in studio. Having that extra time means that I don't have to push myself too hard later.
Nancy says, arthritis girly right here. Glad you're talking about this. Manette says, I have low back arthritis. Sometimes sitting at a desk is painful. Sometimes standing is painful. There's no winning with arthritis. But we also have other things to talk about today in addition to arthritis. For example, Karasu says, I have motor skill difficulty, struggle to make things look the way I want them to. I'm also autistic, have ADHD and sleep apnea. W315, finally developing arthritis, and of course, it's in the thumb of my dominant hand. There's so many challenges. I am very lucky that for the most part, I have not had something that was chronic, but I did have de Quervain's tenosynovitis. Gosh, it must have been over 10 years ago. And I was just so upset just to temporarily not be able to do anything. So we're talking about the physical limitations, but there's also just what it does on your mind and your thinking. What's that been like for you, Lauryn?
Oh, yeah. I feel like a failure when I can't get in and work. And have you felt that way as well, Clara, when you can't do stuff? Is it frustrating?
When I had de Quervain's, I couldn't write my name. It was too painful to hold a pencil. And I remember thinking, what if this is forever? What if this is the rest of my life? I have to learn how to be an artist differently. I'm very lucky. I had physical therapy and I eventually got shots into my wrists, but that was very alarming.
Yeah, definitely. I've had that feeling too. I think that's the scariest thing, is the uncertainty, because at least for me, I've never known how long or how bad a particular flare is going to be. For
Yeah.
me, I know that it's worst in the mornings. I'll wake up and both my hands will be claws like this. I'll be really hard to open them up and do things. And sometimes that's only a couple weeks, and other times it's just months and months and months, and it drags on. And so there's just no understanding of how long I'll have to alternate and do things a different way until I can get back to a more standard pacing for myself. So, and there's also okay, well, what if I do this to make it ease up? What if I try this? What if I try this? The management. Yeah, it's different every time. And you don't know what's going to trigger it either. Like, I know a few things, but sometimes it's something totally random. And it's very frustrating.
Tell us in the comments, what are some of the tools in media that you've worked with where you realize, oh, geez, I got to really alternate doing this. Like, I can't just do this one thing the whole way through. For example, sometimes there's options that we don't know about. I just found out that they make electric etching presses. Typically, you're supposed to like crank them, right? Which is usually not a problem. But if you're printing an edition, that can get really exhausting where you're just printing so much. And so I went to Shepherd and Maudsley in West Newton, and they're like, oh, yeah, let's use the electric press. I'm like, what? And they're like, oh, yeah, you just press a button. I'm like, that's it? Like, sometimes there's things you just don't know about.
Yeah. For me, it was the laser cutter that really changed my life. I did a lot of pattern and stencil kinds of things when I was in your class and at RISD, and I would not be able to do that anymore. Granted, I am helping Sonia cut a stencil right now, and I am in a good place to cut stencils, but I am doing a limited number of them. But it was the laser cutter, knowing that that was an option and that they have those at my makerspace, they have them at my school. That really changed my idea of what kinds of things I could still make.
There are a lot of options out there, and certainly not all of them are going to work necessarily, but I do think everybody, it is worth, at the very least, come into our Discord and ask your questions there, because chances are, if you're having a tough time doing intaglio printmaking for one reason or another, you can come to the Discord and ask us, because sometimes there's options and we really just have no idea about them. I'm not saying everybody can get an electric press, but just knowing that, oh, well, if I save up to do this one thing, that's going to make it easier. Because we also have here in the comments, Karasu says, I can't do anything involving X-Acto knives. And Butter says, one of my lung medications gives me a hand tremor. And trust me, those of you guys who are older folks, it does not improve, because I have things that I used to be able to stay up and do. I can't do it anymore. I just get too tired. And I didn't have that problem when I was 19.
Yeah. The hand tremor comment, Butter, really sticks out to me too. I know several people that have tremors, and that does require a fair amount of finagling to get into a rhythm that works, that adapts to the tremor. I know one person uses very large supplies and very large movements because it's the fine motor skills that are difficult. To switch it to something that involves more, elbow and shoulder, that helps make the movement smoother, or also incorporate some of the tremor into the work in a way that feels considered and useful and part of the work itself. I mean, you are the artist. That is a part of you. That is, you shouldn't try to erase it from the work. It's a part of who you are. But yeah, just finding that ways of stabilization in different mediums that involve other parts of your body, or strengthening different muscle groups that can help stabilize is a great way to sort of get around it.
I have found editing on my phone, I've had to make adjustments. Tell us in the comments, how many of you have struggled with some part of holding your phone or looking at it? Because now I can spend a long time on my phone if I'm editing a reel or something like that. I used to always edit just on Premiere on my desktop, and I do appreciate how simple it is for me to edit reels, for example. But I was like, oh my God, if I don't have something behind my neck, I end up just doing this when I'm editing on my phone. And so I've had to almost create this like weird pillow blanket nest for myself on the couch to make sure that I'm not doing that. Because sometimes I'm just like editing like crazy and not paying attention. And so that's something that I just always know. Okay, pillow here, blanket here. Okay, now I'm ready to edit. That's so important. And by the way, everybody, speaking of Instagram Reels, guess what? The Instagram Reels cheat sheet, our ebook, is $2 off during this live stream. So if you want to get that $2 off discount for this ebook, you want to get it now. The link is in the description below. It's also in the pinned messages. And this is just really straightforward. It's going to save you guys a ton of time, because the whole thing about Instagram Reels is there's just a couple things you need to know. And if you know those things, it's just so much easier. So go down to the description. You guys can get that $2 off during this stream. Okay, well, Lauryn, let's talk about this. Finding an artist community who shares these experiences. I don't know that everybody would think that that's the thing to do, that everything's so specific to the person and what works for them. And obviously, we're not doctors or anything like that. But why do you think this really matters?
I have this contrast of experiences so something that happens more when I was younger, before I was really dealing with this on a hardcore level too. It's not even hardcore. It's just like, this is just something that is, moderate in my life, whatever. But there are other people in my life that have more disabling experiences than I do. And talking with my able-bodied friends, it was very isolating or very, very alienating, because we just shared different values, and there are a lot of differences in how we approached productivity, and so that made it difficult to talk with them about things that were going on in my life. Now I am in a community. I'm also older, and all my friends are older, and all these things, all the chickens are coming home to roost. So everybody in my immediate circle is dealing with some sort of body thing that makes that's given them a different view of how to live their life as an artist and a person in the world. And that has made things a lot easier. That's made things a lot easier mentally. And also, just because we share different body conditions, or just because we have different body conditions, it doesn't mean that our experiences are totally different. We share a lot of techniques for working through something. We're more what's the word? We're more tolerant of needing to switch things up, of being spontaneous in different ways, or allotting time in different ways, or taking a break and letting each other take a break, and not be like, you should really be in there right now. You need to be doing this thing right now. No. You can't do that. You have to allow for flexibility when you're dealing with a body that doesn't want to behave, has a mind of its own, so to speak.
Let's hear from all of you. Anna says, I have cerebral palsy. I think that's what it stands for, which impacts my fine motor control. A lot of my art practice has been about finding work arounds for that and not being able to see linear perspective due to having visual impairments. Tolly says, I have neck pain, left side of my neck, so no art. Mostly I deal with digestive issues, so making art can be hard. The thing about having an art practice, I think we should all get rid of the word consistency, because people say to me all the time, well, I want to be more consistent. My life doesn't allow for that kind of consistency, because I'm juggling all these things. Sometimes I'm just away from the studio for months, and we have to be okay with that. We can't say, oh God, I haven't drawn for 3 months. That's just your life. You have to just be away for 3 months sometimes.
Or also thinking about consistency, I think help. So the way we're talking about consistency right now is going in to draw every day, and that is do every day. But consistency could be thinking in an artistic way every day and switching up what it is that you do. Okay, so for instance, with me, maybe I really am not in the space to be drawing, but I can take photos of references, or I can read up on a certain thing, or honestly, I would also include just making sure my body is fueled in a particular way for the next day. If I really can't do anything at all, setting myself up to be in a more likely position to say yes the next day, that can also count. Don't be militant on yourself. You don't need to be. That sets up a mindset where you feel shame, and then you don't get into studio or do art at all,
Paige says, I have a problem with dropping paintbrushes and caps. At least 3 times every painting class, I have to dodge my utensils because I can't seem to keep a hold of them. Yeah, a lot of it actually has to do with furniture and where you put things. Like I have this crummy tray table and it's just the right height, because if it's just a little too low, it hurts my shoulder every time I have to like bend down. And so sometimes there's a lot of trial and error to find, okay, what is the right bench? Where is the height and how does that relate to my easel? It's actually a lot of things to have to keep track of. Marilyn says, arthritis in the hands, neck, back, herniated discs, nerve damage from animal attacking hand, also have no cartilage from too many shots in the wrist. Well, I'm just so glad that people are sharing this, because we hear so much about the art practice and so much of it is about, oh, the supplies and what we're making and everything. But we are part of that making, and it has to be talked about.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, Lauryn, you also mentioned about weather, environment, and temperature. What's up with these?
This goes a lot into the whole, I don't necessarily know what's gonna cause it to go off, but definitely before this really became an issue that it is, I was like, what are people talking about? They can feel the weather in their bones. What does that even mean? But there's definitely something when it gets too hot, that will cause things to hurt. That will cause joints to hurt. When it gets too cold, then I'm dealing with the Raynaud's, and then I think it's the drop in pressure when there's a system coming in for whatever reason that causes stuff to ache too, and it's so weird. But so here's one of those things as far as consistency goes, or setting up consistency for yourself. One of the things that I found is I need to keep my studio at a particular temperature. If the studio gets too cold, if it's under like 68 degrees, then things start going downhill for me, and then I'm dealing with issues with moving my hands. Definitely if it's like 65 or under, no go, can't do it. So things that I have around me, I have a space heater, I have compression gloves, I have heated gloves. I don't do plein air painting. That's not something that works well for my hands. And I just make sure that I always have these things in studio and ready to go in case the studio heat is not up to par, which is more often than I would wish.
Yeah, you're oftentimes under a blanket whenever we're hanging out.
I have one right now, actually. Oh, that's the other thing. That's the other thing. So because I have Raynaud's, like, I have, maybe this is like TMI, I have a dead toe. I got frostbite on my toe when I was like 18. And so one of the things that I do is like, I'm wearing socks no matter what. I can never like not wear socks. That was something that the doctor had me do so that this doesn't happen again. But now if I'm not wearing socks, I can't sleep. I can't do anything. The air on my feet is like, so I don't like it. So always wearing socks, often wearing something to keep my hands warm.
Acme says rubber and silicone bands on slick insulated drinking cups and on brushes make them just a little easier to grab. Well, thank you so much for that suggestion. And actually, let's talk about that stuff, because Lauryn, you and I were talking earlier about the assistive tools and garments that you have used in the past. Tell us in the comments, what are some things that have helped you? For me, it's about having a pillow that's not too soft. You know, everybody's like, oh yeah, a pillow, that's so nice. I'm like, no, I need a pillow that has some density. Otherwise, it really just doesn't work very well. And sometimes it takes time to figure out what is the thing that's actually going to help me, because you can try a lot of different things and maybe some of them don't actually work very well.
Yeah.
Elizabeth says fibromyalgia, PMR, intention tremors, osteoarthritis, ADHD, depression, anxiety. I've made so many switches in my past. I have to create art. That's a lot that you have in your life. And I think the important thing is that we realize there are options, despite things sometimes feeling so difficult to deal with. And that again goes back to what we said about finding an artist community, because what Acme said about those grips, like, that never occurred to me.
Yeah.
So that's really fantastic that you brought that up.
That is what I'd like to say about the art prof community too, is that I've noticed from the beginning we have had a lot of chronically ill or disabled artists in the art prof community that are sharing things all the time, things that I didn't know about. In fact,
Me too.
my current compression gloves came from somebody in the art prof community. Yeah. And they're great because they go all the way up over my elbow too, so they really get they keep everything warm. It's great, and they keep my circulation correct.
Jen says, I had a friend who had tremors, liked to draw with pens. He just accepted that his art looked scribbly and made it part of his style. I really liked it. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
You draw the way you draw. That's something that is inherent to who we are. And I don't think we should be pushed to draw in a way that doesn't feel natural to what you're doing with your body.
Yeah, I have that. That reminds me too. I just visited a friend who he's losing his vision. He's been losing his vision for a while. It's a rare eye thing, but that really affects his work. And his work is it wouldn't be his work without that experience that he's having. It's very much it's in this grayscale. There's all these very subtle shifts in the grayscale, and it makes him, and I just love the work, and you should look him up sometime. His name is oh man, I'm spacing out. I'm having anyway, we can keep going. I'll put in the chat. His name's Michael, but I can't remember his last name right now.
Super 60s and 70s says, I'm 66 with arthritis everywhere. I cannot hold a needle to sew or do needlepoint at this time. I started doing collage because of my hands. See, that's the thing, is we have to sometimes pivot in a completely different direction. But that's where I think we can discover things in our studio practice that maybe we didn't anticipate ever. I mean, I haven't thought about collage as being part of my practice, but maybe someday I'll have a reason to do it or whatever. And I think that so often there's emphasis, well, I can't do this. And of course, that's incredibly frustrating to have that. But I've seen so many artists pivot in different ways and make incredible work based on that. Anna has a question. How do you deal with talking about your limitations in a crit? I had a critique recently, was frustrated trying to explain why I could create fine lines in my drawings, but not in my paintings.
Yeah, for me, I am generally just as straightforward as possible. And also, if I'm not open to hearing about suggestions to fix things, I think that can be really annoying a lot of the time. Is, I've done this to other people too, so I think it's very common to say, somebody says, I'm experiencing this problem, and you say, oh, have you tried this and this? It's always yoga too. Why is it always yoga? Yoga or drinking water? But not dissing these things, but they're not panacea. Anyways, I think it's also been helpful to be clear on the outset. I don't want, this is off limits. We are not discussing this particular thing. Like we have to move on. But I agree. It can be frustrating to try to explain something to someone who does not have that experience, and we can't make them have that experience. The best we can do is just say, like, this is what it's called. You can look up stuff on your own if you're really interested in it, but I'm not like, I'm not here to give you all of that information. That's not my job. We're talking about the work here.
I also think what's exhausting is having to explain things all the time. And I think part of it that can help is if you're working with artists who know you pretty well. So that way, when you sit down and talk to them about things, you're not having to give your whole life story. And that's one of the reasons why I really love that so many of you guys have been in our Discord community for years now. And there are all kinds of people in the Discord, and a lot of them, I feel like I know a lot of you guys pretty well, so that you don't have to educate me on some of these things that are in your life. So I think that is one benefit of, as we said, being in an artist community, but also being in the community long term. So you're not just there for like, 2 weeks. It's a pretty big difference for that. Okay, we also have Carol. I have MS, numb hands, hand tremors, fatigue, switched from acrylics to oil pastels and crayons. If I drop those, no big deal. Dropping paintbrushes left a terrible mess. It's those small things, but it's like it can make all the difference in the world in terms of keeping a fluid practice so things are not disruptive as you're putting things together.
Yeah, I have to say I really agree on the thing of using dry mediums when you're not when you're dealing with inconsistency with motion. That was like a thing when I had my surgery and was using my right hand. It was really hard. I just get paint everywhere except the canvas. So going to those dry mediums, also working digitally, that digitally was great because you're pretty clean. You're not going to create a toxic wasteland if you spill. You're not spilling anything.
Sketchpaw says, used to hunch over my desk a lot when drawing in my sketchbook. Now I stack a few books, place my sketchbook on top at a slant, which helps me draw without leaning over as much. And by the way, thank you so much, Sketchpaws, for the super sticker. We so much appreciate your support. Sometimes it's a furniture thing. Like, actually, one of my kids has been doing a lot of that leaning over. And I was like, listen, we're going to get you a drafting table because you're going to just die if you keep doing this forever.
This was something that we were just dealing with too, Clara, when I was working with Sonia. She does tons of cutting, again, the stencils. Yeah. And she was working a regular size table, and that leaning over is just not good. It's not ergonomically great. So she got risers for the table that they could stand on to make them at a height where she didn't have to lean over. And they were so cheap. I think they were like $10 or something. So those types of easy things. Another thing that I think of is my partner has this really soft cactus pillow. It's you have the same. It's like your log pillow.
It's my log pillow.
It's the same brand. Yeah, and that is a really fantastic. It's soft and it molds to whatever position you need, and it provides just enough extra support, and it's super portable.
Yeah, and Lisa, a good reminder, groups can become negative, so be careful you stay positive. Well, I know I'm biased, but I do think that our Discord is a safe, positive place, and we do boot out people pretty fast for being jerks. So you got to find the community. I think we're the best, but you guys can make your own judgment. However, Paranoia Princess, also arthritic artist here. And Jen says, I try to match my art practice to match how my body is feeling that day. On days I can't use my hands, I like to watch art videos on YouTube. Oh, there's so many things to me that are part of my practice that have nothing to do with making the stuff. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm going to buckle down. I'm going to watch that video. I'm going to go step by step. I'm actually going to do it. And I still feel like I'm doing something. So the making does not have to happen all the time. Like Lisa says, brainstorming, great task when you're physically tired.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll just put things in my phone. I'll just make notes in my phone, and that will be it. And I'll translate them later to my sketchbook. But if you can't even watch a video, but you have some idea that pops in your head, or you want to even think about your experience and how that's affecting your art, and put that in your notes really quick before you shut out the lights, whatever, and rest a bit. It also counts. That all counts.
Sonnet says, I don't have arthritis, but I'll be 40 this year. Can definitely feel the changes occurring in my body, knees and back in particular. My goal is to work out, hopefully help with the aches and pains. I've had to be very careful because it's so easy for me to just sit at my desk and not get up ever. That is a problem I know I have, but sometimes it's really hard. Like if you're in the middle of something, you don't want to get up, and then you get up and you're like, ow, like why did I do that to myself? So a lot of it is not just knowing, but setting things up where you have to get up. Like oftentimes if I schedule an appointment, I'll schedule it in the middle of the day. So that way I work in the morning, I go to the appointment, I come back. So sometimes little things can be very helpful. Sandra says, woodworker friend made me a stable wood tray for my walker. I can use it from my chair. Pops out easily and stows next to my chair. That's brilliant. See, we all need to find solutions, and oftentimes you can't buy the thing. You need a handy friend, to come in and help you with something.
Yeah. I really appreciate things like the shower caddies that can hang, because you can put those off of any particular thing and they're nice and open, so you don't have to, try to get the brush right into the correct holder. It just, they're open containers. I appreciate those.
Thank you so much, Anna, for the super sticker. We so much appreciate it. And we also have Lisa, who says, I do a lot of mental planning before I make art. I count that as art practice too. Well, see, that's the thing. I don't think I could draw every day in a row. At a certain point, I have to take a step back from the piece, or I have to do something else because I'm tired of working on that piece and it's like driving me up the wall. So I think it's also a matter of understanding how diverse an artist's practice is, and that it's not always that brush on the surface of the canvas.
Oh yeah, I think I did a pie chart or something of the amount of hours I actually spend with paintbrush to canvas, and it's like one third out of the pie chart. It's not that much. It's not even half. It's ridiculous. It's so much is happening outside of the canvas all the time.
Tell us in the comments, what are some of the things you do that are outside of, let's just say, your example of brush to canvas, that you do that are just as important to when you do that? For me, a big part of it is just figuring out the materials. Like sometimes I'll go to the art store and I have to like check all the different surfaces. Like I spend a lot of time researching the materials, and I'm not making anything, but I'm like, oh, what about this? Oh, I went to the store and they had this weird glass thing, and maybe I'll do this. So material research is a big part of it. But also, I think looking at art history and contemporary artists, like I was looking a lot at Franz Messerschmitt, his character heads were very expressive. I spent a lot of time looking at his work. And so, Lauryn, I think a big part of it is just us understanding that art is much more than just that brush.
Right. I mean, the fact that we're even talking about just the brush, I'm talking about because I'm a painter, but really I've seen people do body prints. I've seen people do like really cool things with their assistive technology that they're using as a way to create art. I've seen like performance pieces, work about transfers, carrying person from one space to the next. I've seen all different types of artwork that have been born of these experiences of working in a changing body.
And come ask us in the Discord. You can say, this is the thing I want to do. Here's why I'm not able to do it. And you'll get so many different ideas, because I know that technically, yes, it is our Discord. We are the ones who run it, but I benefit from the Discord. Like when I've needed help with certain things, especially materials, I'll ask, and like 3 or 4 people will be like, yes, do this and this. And then I have 4 different opinions on different ways I can go about doing things. It's so much faster than just like suffering in silence and feeling like you have no idea what you can do.
Yeah.
We also have Renee, when I went to hand therapy, they gave me a lot of tips for making my grip bigger to avoid pain. So I got some chunky foam pencil grips that I can put on paintbrushes.
I was
Yeah,
going to talk about those. They're so
yeah, yeah.
cool.
Oh, you use them too?
I don't use them, but I've seen other people use them, and I've seen up to like carving pool noodles. That one was super cool, and attaching them to utensils. I think it's awesome.
Well, we also have Super 60s says, when I'm inside Dick Blick, my chronic pain goes away. So I leave the store. I call it the Dick Blick glow. Yeah, art supplies, that's a whole other universe where money has no meaning, and yeah, anything can happen. Actually, I went to the art store today, but I knew exactly. I'm like, I'm getting safflower oil, Gansol, and a silicoil tank. That's it. I'm not going to look at anything else.
I have to say, I do want to circle back to the grip things, because there are a lot of really cool. Similarly, in occupational therapy, I got introduced to a bunch of different grip tools that really helped a lot. One of my favorites is they seem like kids' toys. They're like brightly colored. They're so much fun. On Amazon, you can get these putties that are different strengths, and they go from super soft to very firm, and you can use those to strengthen your grip, or to strengthen your grip on with certain fingers. And it's also just a really good, if you're a type of person that needs something to fidget with, that needs a little stimming thing, it's great putty for that too. You can do it while you're on a call, you can do it while you're drinking your coffee. It's fantastic, and it helped me a lot. So I'll put that out there as well.
By the way, all of the things that Lauryn mentioned, like compression gloves and stuff, we did put links to those in the video description. So if you guys want to check out any of those things, those are all in there. And by the way, everybody, you've got about 3 minutes to take advantage of this Instagram Reels cheat sheet ebook, $2 off. The retail price is $10, but this is a really great quick thing that will actually give you a much more reasonable way to make Instagram Reels. Because when I've talked to people about making Reels, there's all these things people think they're supposed to do that they really don't need to do. And so if you guys get the Instagram Reels cheat sheet, you will find that all the things you thought you were supposed to do that took forever actually are really not necessary. So take a look at that. The link is in the description to get that $2 discount, and that ends when this live stream ends. And by the way, thank you so much to Nancy for
Thanks,
the
Nancy.
super sticker. And by the way, Nancy also says, I don't feel that life is always positive, and I appreciate when people are supportive on those less than positive days. Oh, there's so many things going up against us, like all the time. It's a conspiracy against artists, I swear.
Oh, that is a good point. I think that's important to discuss, where it's like, we don't want negativity circling into negativity, but toxic positivity is just as bad. This whole like, oh, you're a fighter, you can do it. It feels sometimes like this, or don't think that way. That's negative thinking. That's like a kind of platitude and sort of thought terminating. And what we want, or what I want, I don't know what you guys want, but what I want is somebody who's in the middle, who can be real, who's like, oh, I recognize that is really hard for you right now. What can we do to support you? That kind of thing. Who can speak on that level?
By the way, everybody, Art Club, in my opinion, is the best program that we have at Art Prof. It is the program I am the most proud of. We have spent years and years developing the format for Art Club, so it is extremely interactive. We really get to know you guys. It took so long to put this together, but now it's like I really feel like it's at a place that I'm so excited about in terms of technology, in terms of getting to know everybody. You can do a free 1-week trial in our Discord. If you get membership in our server shop, in the Discord. You get 1 week free. Try it out. See if you like it, because it's just a great place to commiserate about a lot of these things that we are talking about today. And a reminder that we have spots open in these 3 May workshops: vibrant portraits, drawing bugs, impressionistic painting. These are all 2-week long workshops. You get audio critiques. There's a 3-hour live session. There are small groups. So I hope you guys will take a look at that, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.